It is Sunday morning. I just released a video on making the miter saw fence. If you haven't seen that video, I recommend going and watching that. It's not one that I think will do well immediately, but it probably will build up views over time. Anyway, so that's done. It does limit the saw to not being able to tilt though. But like I said, I never do that. I think I've tilted the saw one time since I put it in its current arrangement, and that is probably the only time since I've been living here. What else is going on? I've got this piece of wood here, or two pieces of wood, that I glued together months ago, actually, and I kind of forgot about it. And what I used to glue those together with was this stuff right here. This is Fast Grab FRP adhesive. I originally bought this with a very specific project in mind, and that was to, insane, it's going to sound insane, I know. It was to cut individual strips of hardwood about 1/4 inch thick, well, cut them and plane them down to about 1/4 inch thick, and then glue those down to the plywood floor that I installed in my house. Because, okay, I installed the plywood floor, it looked awesome, and then I ruined it by putting that finish that I put on. I had a choice. I could either sand all that stuff off, or I could glue down real hardwood on top of it. And in preparation for the crazy option, I bought 2 buckets of this stuff, and it's not cheap. So I've been trying to think of things I could use it on ever since. I used some of it on my subwoofer to glue in between layers, and it was really good for that. But I would like to see if it's good for just general purpose, long open time gluing out here in the shop, especially when it gets cold during the winter. So I glued this one up during the summer, so I'll be able to test the strength of that. And this one I just glued up 2 days ago. And it was cold in the shop, as cold as it ever gets, 5 degrees. I've got a heater that comes on and keeps the temperature at 5 degrees Celsius. So that's below the recommended temperature for this, but I think that they've got some tolerance there, some leeway. Anyway, so I've got that to test as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them in my vise, and I'm going to break the joint and see what happens. Regular wood glue, real wood glue would break. It wouldn't break on the glue seam at all. It would tear out the wood, because regular wood glue is actually stronger, typically stronger, than the wood that you're gluing. And I've got both of them there to be able to compare. You know, this is done in warm weather, so ideal circumstances, and this is cold weather, less than ideal. I'm pretty strong, and I've got some weight to put behind it too. All right, so there you go. That failed on the glue joint completely. No tear out of the wood at all. But it was pretty strongly held, okay? Next one. Oh, that's even weaker. So there you go. The project that I'm about to start working on is a 2-step stool. I made one of these a few years ago from plywood, and I still have that. It's actually out in my shed right now because I was using it out there to put stuff on to spray paint. It was my speaker, the subwoofer. But normally that stays in my shop here, and it allows me to get up to higher places whenever I need to. Okay, just a couple steps up. However, something like that is handy in the house for just generally having around to get up to higher places. If you want to reach something higher, maybe you get up one morning and you're shorter than normal or can't straighten up as high and you need some help with that. So I was going to make a fancy one from solid wood, and the piece of wood that I'm going to use is right here. This is actually a piece of ash. A nice piece of ash. I'm trying to stand it up without stabbing the ceiling. And the interesting thing about this is the color, okay? It's got some darker wood. Okay, it almost looks like this is sapwood and this is heartwood, but I know that's not the case with ash trees. They don't have a darker color heartwood. I don't think, anyway. But I thought that this would be interesting because this is the odd man out. I've got a stack of 20 of these. This would be 21. And they're all nice and pale, all very uniform grain, all very the same. So it'd be good to make a project, a bigger project with those. Whereas this one kind of sticks out. So I know I can get the entire step stool from this, so I was going to do that. And that'll be on my main channel this weekend coming up, I guess, barring any disasters. Okay? It's going to be some fancy joinery in there. Okay? No screws, no nails, no brads, just glue and fancy joints. So I'm talking about upcoming projects. I'll talk about this. I bought this thing, I don't know, 5 years ago, with the idea that I would make a wooden version of this and make plans for it. And this was down in my basement. I had the Shapeoko on there. I took that out, and so I brought it up with the idea of actually doing that now. And I'm trying to make improvements with it as well. It'd be better if I had the actual original one. Like they say on the top here, the original Workmate, that's in name only. Because this doesn't bear any resemblance basically to the original, which is much more rugged and capable than this thing here. However, it does have the same basic functionality in that it folds up for compact storage, and it has these panels on the top that will close on your workpiece to act as a vise. And they also have dogs that fit down in holes in the top, so you can get wider panels on there as well. So say you want to cut a board like I just showed, you could set it on top, put the dogs in the holes, and then clamp it together using these little cranks here, and then use your circular saw to cut it across. That's good. I think that this would be a nice project for to have around, because this is down in my basement, but several times I've taken the Shapeoko off of there and I've used this to do something on. So it is kind of handy. This particular thing here is really flimsy. But if I were to make it from wood, I would design it so it's much more hefty and not being too heavy either, because that's one thing that this has going for it. It's very lightweight, which is very important for something like this, because you want it to be stable, yes, but more important than that, you want it to be easier to transport. Now you can, lift that up and carry it with one hand. So I'm looking at somewhere around the same weight and basically the same functionality for this.
Hey, how you doing?
Who are you?
I'm your Uncle Buck.
Do I have an uncle?
Unfortunately.
Ooh. Holy smokes. He's cooking on garbage.